Okay, perfect. So we are here to do another episode with Zahara. Megan has a couple more probably generalized questions on some interesting. There, we always know everything's interesting, but this is a little bit of the heavier side of our duality of topics. So triggers, um, what
Shadow
people
work.
like to, yeah, label a lot of different things, shadow work, all the things. So we're going to talk a little bit about that from Zahara's perspective, looking at the human perspective from that kind of level. It gives it a very different way of perceiving things sometimes. But we just wanted to give you a little bit of a forewarning because sometimes it can be a little bit triggering, literally, even though we're going to be talking about triggers, sometimes it's triggering just even talking about triggering. So if you're feeling a little bit worked up by anything in here, I would really suggest you to actually play with that. I wouldn't want you to say run away from it because running away from it is just hiding it in the closet. If you have the time and space and you want to really explore it, ask yourself why you're feeling that way, even simply by some of the conversation that might be had here today. Zahara will likely go into some different avenues with some different things that they might feel the most relevant for right now, what's going on, what's happening, because we are in very different times. This is really affecting people differently than it ever used to. So that's what we're gonna do. So I'm gonna drop in, and Megan's here. And so if you're not watching this on screen, you will not hear the pause, but we're gonna have a pause here for a minute. So I'm gonna drop in, and then we'll get going. But you all are not going to obviously hear this pause because we're just gonna jump and we're gonna edit this, so it's not lagging and everybody's just sitting here waiting. So with that, I'll drop in, and then you can just whatever generalize off the topic
You bet.
that you want to start
You
with.
bet.
Oh, I'm warm already. Hmm. We are ready for your first, what you described as a generalized topic, which we do agree it's very broad, but we shall start with something here that we feel as though is might most be relevant for all of you at your times of where you are on your earth. So which one would you like to start with?
So, my first question is about triggers. So, can you explain how or why they come up and how we can work through them?
Yes, from our point of view, we will also reference to what most of you would likely use as your own language, but we'll also try to bridge the gap into us and understanding in our way from outside of your duality at all at this point on your planet. We say this because it might be extremely helpful for some of you to see a very different perspective in not being so human in some of these experiences that you all have. So, one, we want you to all remember you have all chosen to be here, as much as that might horrify some of you in your conscious minds today, but you have chosen to be here. We also want you to understand we are highly respected souls for coming to have an experience on this earth. It is one of the toughest lives you can live as an experience to experience energy at a soul level that is very disconnected from remembering who you are. And yet, this is why it happens for some of the deepest and most profound things that you bring back to all of us, in a sense. So you have chosen to be here, yes, but you also must remember there are very specific things your soul is coming here to experience and to learn. Your triggers teach you exactly what it is you have come to experience or learn at a soul level. Now, most of you, obviously, with your duality and your emotions and the intensity of everything, have a hard time seeing past what those triggers might be actually trying to bring forth as information and learning. So you come into survival mode, and you literally, if you can think of it as we see you, are fighting the air with a sword and shield. There is nothing but yourselves. You may as well be standing in front of the mirror. You are not affecting anything or anyone else outside of you by anything that is coming up as a trigger within you. It is yours and yours alone. Triggers stem from the term, if you think of it really in a reality of a trigger on, we're going to use a water gun because we really dislike the fact that you have weapons that can cause harm. But if we say a water gun and you are got your finger on the water gun trigger and you are getting ready to pull this consciously is a very different reaction. We call that anger. Anger often happens from a build-up to you actually pulling that water gun trigger yourself. Now, if you're more like, well, why do I just automatically explode sometimes with anger without me feeling the buildup? One, most of you are not conscious to understand that you are building. But two, that trigger is connected to something inside of you that likely came from experience you had as a child. Almost every single trigger you have as a human being of being adult has stemmed somewhere from childhood. Now, we do understand many might be thinking, well, you can have traumatic experiences even in adulthood. Sure, you can, absolutely, but they are not usually stemming from a new belief. They are being created from the ones that were already input into your subconscious mind sometime between the ages of 0 to 7 years of age. So, no, the belief systems are often not any different by the time you may have traumatic things happen to you in adulthood. Now, if you think about traumatic, post-traumatic stress disorder is what you all would likely label it as. So experiences within those are also very different because they are not necessarily stemming from the triggers per se that came from childhood. They are stemming from belief systems that were given to you around those types of situations. So it's a very different dynamic between what has been given to you from childhood compared to what society has given to you as you have been living life on Earth. For different cultures, you will see different beliefs, and it is often why many do not understand each other when it comes to religion. It has the same intensity and the same effects when you think about triggers in the sense of what has happened and what may have happened when you were an adult. Post-traumatic stress disorders come from decisions made by oneself or a decision that was made that you did not think you necessarily could make, but it was still made and it was still a choice. So then the brain starts to eat up on the guilt factor from behind that, and that's what often causes post-traumatic stress disorder. Or you see really terrible things as in your wars or militaries or were treated in a way that you were not seen. But again, remember, not being seen often also stems from childhood. There are many ways that could be moved through energetically with post-traumatic stress disorders, but many are so afraid of being seen for in which because when they were young, they were told not to be seen. So you can see there's a bit of
Yes.
a vicious cycle that starts with all of that, yes?
Yes.
Now, your triggers that may have come from childhood when you might be in a simplistic conversation with a friend and all of a sudden you feel activated or you feel angry or you feel as though you need to shut down and walk away, that is a trigger coming from within self and self alone. Remember, every single person around you plays a role. They are a mirror to some extent. So they will bring up certain energies within you that your soul wants to learn and grow from. But it is almost impossible for you to continue to do that if you keep shoving them back down to the bottom of the barrel. That is where you see your vicious cycles come through. Or that is where you see people, why I thought I dealt with this. Remembering you're always on a spiral. Your realities can never 100% shift for you to never be a part of again unless you no longer remember it whatsoever. So, in fact, you will rediscover certain things or certain situations that you thought you had dealt with. But remember, just because a situation is showing up, it's not about the situation, it's about how you are choosing to react. Is it the same kind of reaction that you've had before? Is it the same intensity? Or is it something different? Because your reflection on something different is telling you that you are releasing triggers and you are choosing something different. And you become more neutral in situations that may have activated you or angered you or annoyed you or frustrated you before. Does that make sense?
Yes. And you're at a different space in your spiral when you're dealing with a situation. So if a trigger comes up on, say, day one, and now it is day 20, and the same trigger comes up, you're at a different space as well. You've learned
That is all
something in the
choice,
last
though. That is
day.
all choice because you still need to have self-awareness. So you could show
Mhm.
up on day 20 in the exact same energetic space that you were on day two. So
Yes.
which
But
nothing would
you,
necessarily look the same.
but it could change.
Could, if you
You
decided to do that work of releasing the energy, yes.
okay.
But the thing is it no longer becomes a trigger. The situation
Okay.
may arise that caused a trigger before, but if you have been doing your due diligence and looking into figuring out yourself in that aspect, you will not see that as a trigger any longer. You will see the situation arise, but it will be to decipher how you feel about that situation will tell you if there is actually a trigger left or not.
Okay. So for the people listening, how do we know? How can we tell if we've actually worked through that trigger, if there is, I'll say, anything left that's still bothering us? How can
Your
we tell?
reactions. Your reactions will tell you automatically your emotions that come up. Do you feel neutral about it? Or do you still feel angry? Do you still feel
Still
frustrated?
bothering
Do you
me?
still feel annoyed? Because if you have any slight tendencies of any of those still showing up, it is still telling you maybe it is not 100% yet resolved.
And so, what are some things that we can ask ourselves to work through some of these triggers that come up?
First off, we don't want you to ask yourselves anything. We want you to feel. We want you to learn and understand that your brain is an association of your physical reality. Your brain can only make sense of what it sees and feels right in front of you at that exact moment. See, your emotions only last 90 seconds. It's the stories that you attach to all of them that make it last a whole lot longer. It is why one may say, day after day, I feel stuck. Day after day, I feel still irritated by that situation that seemed to arise. It is because you have attached a story to that emotion. That emotion only can last in your body for 90 seconds. After that, you are the one creating and holding it there. So if you are still continuing to feel frustrated, anger, or annoyance, particularly, register and ask yourself, how intense are you feeling this? Because your intensity will still tell you if there is less intensity than the last time something like this kind of trigger showed up. That tells you there's been progress within self. That is, there's not nearly as much energy around this. Now, when you feel as though the same situation shows up and you have no reaction whatsoever, that is telling you you have resolved that energy in yourself. You have resolved the belief that has created that story that created the trigger in the first place. You have changed it, and so in which you will not have reaction any longer in those ways. You will be neutral. You will likely feel as though you are at peace or silence. And though this can also agitate the other person, because if you are no longer giving the reaction that they are used to you giving, they may all of a sudden get quite uncomfortable. But that has nothing to do with you. That is simply to show you that the states have changed in the dynamics of the energy. And you are at a much more resolved place because you are no longer actually having a automatic reaction that is non-preferable. Does that make
So,
sense?
yes, yes. So, when you were talking about inner child, some of the things that I have seen and read about inner child work is it is this person, the you version of you from when you were younger, of where these beliefs came from. Now, I understand that we cannot go through all of the traumas that were put there when we were younger in one day. I know that it takes time, but how might somebody start doing that work? Or is there certain things like a trigger that comes up that makes you more aware of that situation and that's the thing that you want to start working on?
Right. Absolutely, your triggers would be the number one to tell you first off that there is something there. That is your body and mind and soul's way of saying there is energy here that is no longer serving or does not resonate with the truth that is actually yours. That is often more or less what has happened to most of you. Growing up, you've been giving beliefs that actually do not resonate with your own truth. And that is why they become irritable and non-preferable and bring up all sorts of irritation to certain degrees of whatever term you decide to use for your emotion. But that is what is likely happening in most of you. It is not actually resonating with your own truth. It is not resonating with your own frequency, as though you just had this conversation before about frequency matching. And so when you have beliefs that are given to you at childhood they do not feel good to you at a soul level. And yet your brain tries to fight you because it says, well, this is how your physical reality works. So your triggers are the number one thing right off the get-go that will tell you that there's something here that does not serve you and does not resonate with your truth. And it is likely a belief around something. You will not find this belief, though, until you decide to feel what you are feeling from the trigger. Then you need to decide that you are willing to be brave enough to explore something that your body will likely feel very uncomfortable by. Remember, your body is trying to keep you safe. So anything that has made you feel uncomfortable, scared, unsure, it tries to hide away for you because it thinks that it is putting you in danger. And well, it seems very logical to think that you are in danger simply from your own thoughts, but your body does not know the difference. And so you must remember it is a piece of you that lives in the more animalistic style of your planet because of the frequency it creates. It can only go off a frequency. It knows nothing else. So when it feels fear, even simply from a thought, it tries to shut it down. So when you go through your triggers, you will be uncomfortable because your body will fight you in not wanting to feel these things because it was taught that this is dangerous. So you have to go slow. You need to go step by step, one trigger at a time. And we promise you, there's no way you'd be able to eat the entire pie of plate of triggers all of you have, because it is part of the process of being human. You are meant to do it in bits and pieces, not to eat the entire plate and pray that you come out the other side. You won't. We can tell you that. You won't. You won't come out the other side. It's too much. Your brain and body will literally go into shutdown mode and you will go into a survival state where you will no longer even be able to think for yourselves. And we hate to admit, but that is often what we see in most of humanity. For many, 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 many years now, has been trained to go into shutdown mode. And so that you are all living in survival. Now, you have hit points on your planet where your vibration has changed enough, where enough people feel safe enough now within frequency, even if they are unaware, that more triggers seem to be showing up on a lot of people, they may say. Uh, where it feels as though everything is just kind of falling apart instantaneously. It is not, but what is happening is your body can literally no longer hold this energy that is no longer aligned with your truth. So if something like those lines where chaos feels very potent in your life at the moment, we would suggest that you don't look at all of the chaos, but to simply look at it as a whole. And this is where we'll give you more of a perspective of not being human. When we look at our planet, we are able to decipher energy very easily, obviously, because we are not necessarily in that experience. We do not have a conscious part of ourselves right where you all are right now. But what we do have is this capability of being able to see balance in energy. And what happens is when too much is out of balance, what you would call in your life as chaos, it overwhelms the physical senses. So what you would need to do for self is to be able to get yourself out of being human. And the best way of getting out of being human is remembering who you actually are, which is a soul being full of energy and with wise knowledge of understanding of all you need to know if you just listened. How do you do that? You need to meditate. Meditation is your tool to access the part of yourself you do not remember when you are being human. It is a way for you to understand clarity with allowing to remove yourself from a situation and see the whole without the emotion. When you have no emotion attached, you will see clarity. So if you have lots of chaos in your life that feels overwhelming at the moment, this is likely a compilation of your soul trying to move out everything that does not serve you or is that not your truth, or it is trying to create space for you to be able to find what your truth is within the chaos. You cannot see chaos, though, when you are choosing to stand in the 100-mile-an-hour winds on the outskirts, praying that some god will lead you to exactly where you need to be. We do not mean to mock religion by saying that, but we do mean in the fact that you need to take responsibility for yourself. There is no
Mhm.
savior coming to help sweep you along. You may have incredible souls in physical form show up to help you, but you still need to be courageous in feeling and being able to help yourself in saying yes. Have some courage to know you are so much more powerful and your emotions cannot actually kill you unless you never deal with them. Then they will. Your physical body will have to express them somehow, and often that can lead to no longer having experience on Earth. But for most right now, you are getting given a wide plate and a variety of things to do and try. But we cannot, even giving you words, we cannot force you in this way, nor can anyone force you to do anything. As this one often says, you can only lead the horse to water, you can never force that bad boy to drink. He's too big and powerful. And that is every individual being. Find your power within yourself first. Find your courage. Connect in with your energy before anything else. You will never be able to deal with anything that feels heavy if you do not have some kind of support and standing behind who you are and what you are, because it'll be too much. You will peel back a few layers off your onion, but you will never see the core if you are not willing to get to know yourself in a way that gives you a better foundation to do so. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Is there questions that came off of this stuff that you have?
Yes.
Fantastic.
So would you consider, so think of the onion and the layers, and each layer is a different limiting belief.
Yes and no. We're going to challenge you a little bit on this actual factor. For we understand that many may have been given that kind of analogy to say every layer of the onion is some kind of limiting belief or belief in your systems, but that
Yep.
is actually also not necessarily true. You also have a lot of DNA aspects in those layers of onions, and sometimes they are actually more intertwined than people believe. And so when some of you are trying to work through maybe trying to release some beliefs that are not serving you, but yet never can quite seem to shake some of that out, is likely actually contained in some of the DNA that was given as being human. So, yes,
Okay.
some of it will be ancestral, some of it will be generational, but there is actually certain DNA aspects in the strands of your physical DNA that have been manipulated to hold on to very specific frequencies of non-preferable states of being.
And
Now,
this
this
is something that we chose before coming to Earth.
no, not necessarily, because this is a blanket effect across your humanity. This is
Okay.
not just one over another. It's a little bit different than choosing family or generational energies that you may be a part of as your experience. This is actually more of a blanketed effect across the entirety of humanity as a physical body alone. So you all have your own specific DNA strands that make you human, the more animalistic style of being human, just like you have cows and foxes. But it is the aspect that makes you your physical self. So you all have, 10 fingers, 10 toes, usually. Hair, all those aspects that make you human, even if your skin colors might be different and all the colors of things might be different. That is not, we are not speaking of necessarily the terms of appearance, but in general, a human being is a human being identifiable against a fox or a cow, yes? So you
Yes.
have DNA that has been blanketed and created, especially from certain generational times, that was more manipulated to certain degrees by the energy that were being affected on your Earth. We have never actually truly spoken into this in this way yet because it was not completely one relevant for anybody to have very specific knowledge, but two, your frequencies weren't quite at a place yet where your DNA had changed enough for you all to find your truth within this. So in parts of those layers of onions, as much as there is beliefs, yes, that come from the thoughts, words, frequencies given to you from childhood and growing up. Of course, yes, you have some of the generational stuff you pass down through genes, but they reside within DNA cells that are very specific to your family genes and cells and energy that run through family lines. We are speaking of on more the general basis of the entirety of humanity has certain manipulation through DNA that has created certain beliefs to be sort of more tricky, we would say, to release some of the fear or manipulation that may have been put around them.
Okay. So if we want to work through some of those
That comes
harder,
along with your onion peels, yes. But we would say instead of trying to rush through all the beliefs, one might need to sit in body a little bit more with Just allowing space is probably the best way we can kind of describe this to you. Many of you will get your own ways of doing certain things like this when it comes to working with your own DNA and the upgrades that have been happening on your planet. And this is a part of that. And this is where some of that's going to start to get more and more released. So these won't be so tough sometimes to seemingly let go of, per se, completely, where you can seem to have remnants of certain things that continually show up. And one of these actually is often to do with a lot of societal beliefs around either generational or man, woman, all those types of deals. But there is more of that's being released and released and released. And the best way to do that for your physical body to be able to integrate the DNA that's changing these parts of officially allowing these beliefs to actually move out would be to give yourself space. So if you work on a belief system through the mind, you're able to make it ridiculous and that you're laughing now at yourself for even believing something like that. You know you've let it go from that aspect, from the mind, from the energy that you create. So you're not going to be recreating that belief in the mind any longer. You're not giving it any power per se. But then what happens if it is a belief that seems to be lingering or you can feel it kind of just hanging out deeper, more into maybe heart center. Some of you might even find it within the stomach or solar plexus area. But you will start to notice the more you sit with your body and allowing your DNA to repair itself from the manipulation that it's had with the upgrades that the sun has recently given you in the last of your 2025 year. This is now where it's becoming more physically integrated. You just need to sit with it and allow. Have no expectations of what it looks, feels like, or does, but just to simply be in stillness gives your body the space to actually allow itself to integrate what it needs to. And then you'll notice that these beliefs just seem to kind of disappear after a while. You don't need to do particularly more work on it, but it will be something that you will need to stay aware of and make time for your body to actually just be. Does that make
Okay.
sense to you?
Yes, the
Okay.
integration, because I feel like a lot of times, I know for myself, and I know there's others that I've talked to in this space, you do the work, but you don't allow your physical body to
Yes.
integrate that full release, right? We just want to move on to the next thing. What's the next? What's the next? We don't take time to just allow it to integrate.
Yes.
So
Time has been
I'm
used
glad you're
against you. Time has
yeah.
been threatened against your poor human race to be
Yes, that
used
there's
as
not
a
enough
terrible
time.
tool.
Hmm?
It's
Okay, so
manipulation.
my other question that we had written out, shadow work. So I understand
Mm.
that triggers and shadow work are very similar.
Yes.
Um, but we want to ask, so shadow work, why is it important? And uh is it different than working on yourself? Um, and if you will, how would one explore that darker side?
Right. Well, let us take away some of the fear that seems to
Yeah,
instantaneous bring up in a lot of people when you wish to think about those aspects of self. But
yeah,
again, it's meant for a reason because it represents your duality on your earth. So we understand that, of course, naturally, many of you will start to feel fear around thinking about, heavier or per se darker, but that also is coming from your Hollywood, where many people have told you to be afraid of it. So there's a lot of dynamics that to we would say you're it's hard for us because your terms and your labels mean something different to every single individual. So for us to say it's one thing over another is also not true. So we wish for you to take what resonates as your own term and your own words out of all that we are saying here today. But when it comes to let's say what we spoke of necessarily triggers, it's a very physical part of being human and the mind and the dynamics and the matrix of the mind. And so triggers are very much a part of the human experience. It's how you work through being here as a soul being. Now, when we say if we want to take the term like a shadow work is more integration of self in a balanced way at a soul level as well. It's a little bit more in depth than just saying this is your human experience. This is where you will integrate more of who you really are into a physical experience with a duality of 50-50. So you will have these moments of self where you will need to adjust the belief systems first. And we do believe that would be more important to go through first because if you just decided one day you were going to sit down and do some shadow work or look at that darker sense of the duality, you will scare yourself. Your body will not allow you to actually go fully into that because it's going to say, whoa, this is not safe. It's very
Too much.
important. Yes, it is very important for your body to feel safe. Remembering your body is the animalistic style of you. Think of your body being the wild animal in the corner, and if you just want to throw it in the corner, no lights, no food, no water, and put it in a box, it is, of course, going to fight and do all it can to get away because it does feel as though it's thoroughly in danger. Now, remember, your body doesn't know the difference between your physical reality and your mind. So as soon as you open up the door into wanting to explore a bit more of yourself in that aspect, which is always fantastic because you only ever get to know more of yourself in these parts of you than anything else. You will never learn or discover something that is not of you. So it is just a learning for self. But if you do this too quickly, your body will go and fight you. So it's very important to start to break down some of the beliefs that you have around shadow work or that you have around your duality. You have to start breaking down the belief of good and bad because your good and bad is instantaneously going to throw your body back into a survival mode if it thinks that this is bad or not good. Fear is an extremely strong emotion on your planet, but it's only ever simply trying to tell you one thing. There's something here that does not serve you. So if you have fear around doing shadow work because you think it's all shadows and you think it's all bad or you think it's all these parts of yourself you don't ever want to look at, I guarantee you should look at them because you are already in avoidance of something that needs balance. We all used many times the analogy of the white wolf and the dark wolf, just simplistically as a visualization. But if you can think of, you have one that walks on both sides of you. Either side, you have a dark wolf and a light wolf that walk in balance in tandem. Now, everybody wants to feed their white wolf because in your society and your realities, that's being a good person,
Mhm.
doing the right things per se. Now, it's very easy for many of you to feed that white wolf, but so many of you are unwilling to even look and acknowledge the dark wolf that walks with you because you are 50-50. And when you do that, it takes time. There's this little bug that she keeps telling us bouncing off her forehead. Silly. It takes time to get to know that part of yourself in a way that you feel safe, loved, and supported because your dark wolf is here for nobody but you. And when you open up the aspects, you don't have to feed that darkness of yourself, but you do need to acknowledge it and you need to be okay with being a part of it. When you do that, you will find the most power what lies within you. When you do this, when you walk through some of the shadows of your own mind, of your own self, as scary as it might feel in the moments, if you choose to have courage, continue walking, continue to explore, you will come out so unshakable that gives you such an authentic part of you. And that is what makes so many of you a powerhouse in your own right, because you all have your own energetic signature. But so many of you play small because you don't believe that you can shine brightly and be safe. That is something you need to teach yourself. Because if you always believe you'll never be safe to explore that side of you, you will never, one, never do it, but you will also never really get a chance to fully see what you want to explore here as a soul being as well. It's not just about having a human experience any longer here. You are all in times where your earth is changing so immensely that if you choose to really participate, you will then see the fact that you are all a part of something much larger happening here as souls as well. And that is for an ascension process, which means you are all creating a different way of being, which means you need to get to know yourselves. Every aspect, every part of who you are at the human level. And you have to accept in yourself that, of course, you can make a decision that might seem like to you very horrible or awful. And one example is many of you would do almost anything for family or friends and your loyalty that lies there, or your children. Now, think about the aspect of emotions that likely come up in so many of you when we tell you this, that you would do anything for them, even if it landed you in jail. So it's this aspect of understanding. It's not to say that you would, but it's the fact that you could. And to fully accept self in that way is when you will start to walk with both wolves in a much more balanced sense. And your fear no longer becomes this thing that controls you. It becomes something that you walk with and understanding with. But it takes time. You cannot do all of this in one go. It is too much. And again, just like with any triggers in your daily life or human, it's just a start to understanding some of the shadow self and some of the deeper and darker parts that exist in your duality. But remember, there is no opposite end. It is a circle. The dark cannot be in existence without the light. So remember that there is no end per se. There's a pit on this side and a pit on the other. It is full
Mhm.
circle. And you find nothing but more of that circle and more of that cohesiveness the more you choose to explore both sides.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Does that help answer that question?
Yes.
All right.
Yes, I would say so. Um, okay, and I think the other question that I had pre-written down, how do we know when to do shadow work? Is there like a certain sign or situation that might come up and force us to do that deeper work? But I feel like you kind of
Always.
answered that.
Yes. We did somewhat answer that because it does come up with your triggers. But
Hmm.
there's always something that often, especially if you are not willing to live in more flow in your life and you are constantly trying to control and resist, we guarantee you there that those will be the people in high chaos right now. Because your earth cannot sustain the same type of energies that it has before. It is literally changing in duality. You are actually changing in duality right now. You are not going to be a 50-50 forever. It will change. Like likely most of you, of course, will not necessarily be here when it's like fully changed to a point where you are not even in a position to be thinking about, these things in these same ways. But while you are here, you are part of the ascension process and the change of the duality as well. And that duality will change whether you like it or not. And unless you actually fully accept the 50-50, you will never actually get to experience where it is going because it has not been accepted yet. So if you feel as though everything is out of your control, that is a sign your soul is trying to tell you you cannot stay exactly where you are any longer. You have tried to control and it is not working any longer because you are going nowhere. The more you let go, the more you will start to see clearly what is first. And do not always think because you move through things and you get to the next thing and you get to the next thing that there's always more. Because when you are in constant thinking that there's more to do or more to look at, you will never be able to fully enjoy the process of where you actually are. So it's one step at a time. The biggest thing is usually always right in front of your face. But many of you resist it because you don't want to feel it. So if you're uncomfortable by something, take that as a little bit of a hint to say, this is maybe something you should explore, but do not put it off. When it shows up in the
Okay.
moment, understand it's showing up in that moment for a very specific reason. If you continue to put it off, what happens? It intensifies. And then it's going to come and
Hmm.
kick you in the bum. And many of you don't like it. But that's what happens. And you are on a point in your earth where you don't get a choice in the change any longer. It's changing. So the more you let go and relax and just flow is, and for most of you, that's going to be very uncomfortable as well because it's not something you're used to doing. Practice that first. Practice
Hmm.
just being in flow and choosing not to want to control everything. And why? When you feel uncomfortable not controlling, then that's where you start exploring. All right, you go through the triggers first, and then from the triggers, you often will find some of the deeper things that are at that more soul level, or some deeper stuff that's trying to be integrated into this human life as your experience of a soul being. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah, it does. So just from personal perspective and things that have happened to family close to me, a lot of men in their 60s, 60-year-olds, there's a lot of health issues with them right now. And to me,
Yes.
it's because they are not dealing with these, you know, childhood traumas, things that have happened,
It's
limiting
not even
beliefs.
just of men, dear one. It is of that generation.
Yes.
They are
In
in
my
such
family, it's mostly men right
it's
now,
it,
but
it's all generation of those ages. We
yeah.
say that because you can think of it as such a difference in frequency now as well. The gap between even your age, your frequency, and when you were brought into this world is so desperately different than where most of that generation lies now. That is why so
Yes.
many of them are feeling lost. It is not just because they're living in times of course, very much probably not dealing with what has happened for them. That's been a part of their journey, and that is just fine. But in an aspect in general, they are feeling very, very disconnected now because the energetic gap is so large that most of them have gone into a type of shutdown. Uh, you can see some of them maybe, still living a daily life, but it is not to a degree of high participation, if that makes sense. So
Yep.
their energy, if you can kind of think of a deflating balloon,
Mhm.
that's what's happening for a lot of those generations right now. Some of them are still choosing to be here and making an effort to do what they can for themselves, and they are obviously doing well with that. But unfortunately, very few have chosen to do that, and that we would like to say there was more of a decision-making point or a turning point for a lot of that generation, and that was about a year and a half ago. They had the choice. And for many of them now, if they did not really make much change or much choice, they're just sort of floating and holding this very stagnant energy that just doesn't
Mhm.
exist on Earth the same way anymore.
Mhm.
So this is a part of that third wave we spoke of before, that there will be the turnover of souls.
If you are not willing to put in the work and do the hard things, here's your exit point, essentially.
Yes, to certain degrees. You also have to remember sometimes the soul really, some of that generation was here as anchors, and they knew that would be all they would be here doing at this point in time. Every single soul is very hard for us to say, yeah, do all the hard things, because there are some souls that are truly here just to do very specific things, and maybe doesn't always necessarily have a lot of growth. Because that is not what the soul has chosen to be here and a part of this time. So it is hard for us to say, yes, every single one of you has, to do all the hard things and all that stuff, because some of you might be like, actually, you know what? I haven't really felt like I've had to do a lot to be able to move in these directions. So we don't want to say everybody's life is super hard here all the time. It just has come down to the decision of what you've decided to do as a soul in this experience. But we guarantee most of you sitting here listening are here to challenge and grow. We would not say that you're here floating, because if you're here listening to this floating, it's probably not making a whole lot of sense to you.
I would agree.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, and I had a quick question about karma
Hmm.
because you kind of talked about that a little bit too. So, um, something has come up in a person's life in my realm. Um, and their question is about karma. And if someone has been doing not very good things, um,
Well, we're going to stop you because we know exactly where you're going with this. And many of you have a term of karma that is actually really not accurate when it comes to the energetics of it. So
okay,
your quote unquote what's called karma, it's not actually karma. Your word karma will explain a little bit more where that is actually somewhat more come from. But what you refer to as now is actually just an exchange of energy. That's not actually what karma particularly is. The way you use it in your wording right now, that's more what it refers to, but is actually not. So what you put out is what you get back. That's universal law. That's law of attraction.
yes,
That's not
yes,
karma. Your karma and your word karma actually has come from ancient times. It's been changed a bit in the way that it's said in today's world, but karma actually has a reference to a different meaning, which was action. So back in ancient times, karma was referenced to taking action on your pulls, your intuitiveness, to follow what many of you refer as flow, source, vitality, the essence of who you are, what you are, to be able to follow that, to take action on what you may need to take action in the physical sense of those things. Back in ancient times, taking action was more energetic because obviously they had different technologies and different knowledge at those times. But in your today's world, it's been shifted and changed, and the use of it a lot of the times is where people want to say, "Oh, well, don't worry, karma always comes back around." So you're using it in the form
Yes.
of talking about the law of attraction, but karma is actually not that particularly piece of it. Karma is taking action on soul. So does that make sense?
Yes.
So when someone might say, "Oh, well, karma will come back," and if they've got questions around karma, try and change it for them to have terminology around more of that law of attraction, because everything is a circle, and so it all will come back in certain ways, but usually tenfold. So if one wants to be unkind, or one wants to be violent, or one wants to be, let's say, feeding into that
Manipulate.
heavier part of self, they
Yep.
will have that wash over them, of course, in a way that is more intensified, but sometimes it doesn't always show up while they're still on Earth. Sometimes it catches up in a way when they come home to integrate as well. Because
Okay.
when you are unbalanced, think of it this way too, though, you can have it from the other side as well, where one can be overly generous and all the things, and one might not ever see it from a physical aspect that there's karma there, or they're in their sense of karma, but in the sense of energetic connection and law of attraction, it will always come back. But when you have such a off-kiltered balance, guess who suffers silently is the person, right? So you don't always see the whole picture from a physical sense or standpoint, but you will always see it in energy. So if you can feel into energy, you can tell when someone is really leaning out of balance one way or the other, or if they're choosing to really make an effort to have more connection and more balance and harmony within self. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Does that help?
Yes.
Good. Answers that question, yes?
Yes. Thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
All right, dear one, we are about done. This one's bossy
Yes.
getting quite hot. She keeps saying we need to should have turned on the fan, should have turned on the fan. Well, we told her to turn on the fan before she started, but she got too excited. It happens. We are happy and blessed to have been here once more with you. We thank you again very much for being and partaking in these with us. It makes
Thank
it more interactive and fun, I'm sure, for everybody else to listen to. So we appreciate your time. Uh, time. And we will be speaking with you very soon then, yes?
thank you.
We thank you.
Thank you.
Oh my God, I should have listened. I should have turned on the fan. Surprised my face isn't beet red yet. Anyway, thank you guys for being here. That was some good stuff, I think, came out of that one. It was, I could feel
Mm.
it was kind of interesting. So I'm excited to
So
kind of jump back through it a little bit and check out what was
it's
said.
really cool. I want to talk just super quick about duality. They talked a lot about duality and black and white. And before we started the call, I actually picked black and white stones today, just looking at
Super
my
cool.
pile of them. And I'm like, I'm going to pick those two.
Oh, I like
So
that.
super
Dark wolf,
cool.
white wolf. Yeah. Awesome. I like
Yeah.
that. That's really cool. Well,
Yeah.
thank you
Very
all
cool.
for being here again. If you guys ever have any suggestions, you ever want topics, please drop them in comments, send me a message, email, whatever it is you'd like to do. Because I mean, nothing's off really off limits unless unless they say no, we can't answer that or we can't talk about those things. They'll be very upfront about a lot of things. So if this is something that intrigues you, have it free for all, man. Send me send me all the topics, send me all
I
the
love
things.
listening.
And if you don't want to put your name on air as a comment, send me as like a private message or something like that. I don't use names. We'll just use them as topics. So it's been great fun, and we'll see you on the next one.